When Indian states were bringing in laws to curb the menace of forced religious conversions, the West laughed at us, saying that this was bound to happen when a Hindu nationalist party, as they refer to the BJP government, takes over governance of the country. But the state governments did not backtrack. Rather, what began last year as legislation against religious conversions achieved by coercion and forced marriages in Uttar Pradesh was soon emulated by BJP states in Assam, Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Haryana. States mandatory to disclose religious beliefs by couples looking forward to marriage. Soon, full-fledged legislations against religious conversions were passed. This was the time when the world said that the minorities are not safe in the Indian subcontinent. The left liberal cabal leapt it up, saying that democracy is in danger in India under the Modi government. But the veil is blown and the West has finally accepted the truth on the land. Namaste and welcome to TFI Post. I'm your host Porish Gupta. Let's begin. Suella Braverman, the United Kingdom Home Secretary, on Sunday unveiled the UK government's plan to curb the menace of grooming gangs on the British soil. Braverman has made it clear that the government plans to make reporting child abuse mandatory for people who work with children in England, while coming down heavily on the British Pakistani man and alleging that the cabal was harming white English girls in Britain, often referred to as the grooming gang. But what does it mean? A grooming gang refers to a group of people who sexually exploit and abuse vulnerable children, often through a process of grooming, coercion and intimidation. These gangs typically operate in communities with a high proportion of vulnerable children, such as those in care or from disadvantaged backgrounds. As we all know, the culture of the West, where teenagers leave their home to pursue their adulthood. As a result, there is no one to guide them, and even if some parents want to teach something good to them for the future purposes, the teenagers often behave like a rebel and start to hate their parents, and sometimes the fight between the parents or divorce hit them emotionally. Consequently, they leave the house to live alone without any proper knowledge or guidance. Many times, they went into depression with no friend to talk to, isolate in their makeshift residence, and here grooming gangs start to target their prey. As is commonly well known, in Western culture, teenagers often leave their homes to start their journey into adulthood. This often leads to a lack of guidance, and even if parents attempt to impart important lessons for their future, teenagers may rebel and develop animosity towards their parents. This can lead to emotional turmoil and sometimes even the dissolution of the family unit. As a result, teenagers may leave home without proper knowledge or guidance and can become isolated and depressed, with no friends to confide with. In this vulnerable state, they may become targets of grooming gangs. To highlight this situation, Braverman said that the British Pakistanis are running child abuse networks in the country. She said, and I quote, "We see a practice whereby vulnerable white English girls, sometimes in care, sometimes in challenging circumstances, being pursued, raped, drugged and harmed by gangs of British Pakistani men who work in child abuse centers." And she did not stop here. She did accept that authorities, especially the civil authorities, have been turning a blind eye towards the menace of grooming gangs as they wanted to be politically correct. She said, "We have seen institutions and state agencies, social workers, teachers and police persons turn a blind eye to these signs of abuse out of political correctness, out of fear being called racist, out of fear being called bigoted. And as a result, thousands of children have had their childhoods robbed and devastated." Rishi Sunak, the Indian origin British Prime Minister, had promised while contesting for the top chair that if he was elected to power, he would eradicate the grooming gangs and deliver justice for their victims. Sunak called it a personal priority. Sunak did come out after Braverman's announcement and say that political correctness would not get in the way to crack down. But what does that mean? To put it simply, he is saying that he would not adhere to the politics of minority appeasement. What the Rishi Sunak government plans to do is track the perpetrators down without fear or favor and bring them to justice. Sunak added that a new grooming gang task force would be set up with special officers supported by the National Crime Agency, helping local forces and offering the use of ethnicity data to assist police investigations. Rishi Sunak warned that for far too long, political correctness has stopped us from weeding out wild criminals who prey on children and young women. This means that no one can hide behind cultural sensitivities as a way to evade justice. The West often considers itself as the ultimate authority on global issues, but in reality, it may be living in the past. Any actions taken by non-Western countries are often disregarded as unnecessary. And here we stand, praising the Rishi Sunak government for defying political correctness and actually coming out and saving their innocent British girls from what they call in the West the grooming gangs. As in India, we have a saying, "Der aaye durust aaye."